Well, I haven't done one of these in a while, but MeTV TOONS has dropped the new fall schedule. Now, in case you guys don't know as well, MeTV TOONS is on DirecTV, but here's the catch. Here's the catch. Even though it's part of DirecTV now, it's kind of in a similar vein as to what you have with over-the-air, cable, and streaming. Let me explain. You see, with Philo and Friendly TV, and maybe other future outlets streaming-wise, with Philo and Friendly TV, if you live on the Pacific Coast, if you will, basically the Pacific side of the country, the West Coast, then basically, if you're going to view any of the shows on the let's say Friendly TV or Philo, a Friendly TV platform like I do, if you're going to view any of the shows there, then basically you'll be viewing the shows that come on Eastern Time. In other words, any show that, comes on at 5:30 in the morning, let's say you're up at 5:30, because you have to work or get ready for school or college classes or whatever. Let's say you get up at 5:30 a.m. and then let's say right now, what do they have listed for 5:30 a.m. on the weekdays? What do they have? They have at 5:30 a.m. The Mask. So they have The Mask, the animated series, listed for 5:30 a.m. Okay. So let's say you get up at 5:30 a.m. You would expect, okay, I live here on the West Coast. I'm going to see The Mask, right? Nope, you're not going to see The Mask. Instead, what you're going to see is the show that comes on at 8:30 Eastern. That's right. So basically, instead of getting The Mask locally, which you can still do if you have over-the-air or cable or DirecTV satellite, if you have the actual satellite, if you will, excuse me, then you can get The Mask at local time. But if not, then this is what happens. This is what happens instead. Basically, instead of getting, like, let's say The Mask, as you get up, you're getting yourself ready and all that, instead of getting The Mask at 5:30, instead, you will be getting, basically, if I can find it here, you will be getting, at that time frame, the Underdog Show. That's right, you'll be getting the Underdog Show instead of The Mask. And like I said, that's because you're watching it on the streaming platform of Friendly TV, Philo, or even now DirecTV's new streaming platform. You'll be getting the Underdog at 5:30 in the morning instead of The Mask. That's what you'll be getting. Excuse me for a second. But like I said, you'll be getting Underdog instead of The Mask. And like I said, that's the catch with the addition of them being on DirecTV. Basically, the catch is essentially the satellite. If you have the physical satellite, you're good to go locally. But if you have just DirecTV streaming, then you have to watch whatever show comes on Eastern Time. In other words, if you live like where I live, Newman, California, or Modesto, California, or Patterson, or Hayward, or San Francisco, San Francisco and Sacramento, you don't have to worry because you got it over the air there. But anyway, if you don't have it over the air, if you will, if you don't have any over the air, then basically, like I said, your only option is streaming, via Friendly, Philo, or DirecTV. And like I said, the catch is, unless you have the DirecTV, physical satellite, then you only have DirecTV streaming. The streaming basically is it's pretty much the same as Friendly and Philo. In other words, you're getting, a show that's coming on at 8:30 Eastern Time, basically New York time, New York City time, Boston, Massachusetts time. You're getting that show instead of the show you'd think you would be getting locally. But the only way you get it locally is if you have over the air, if you have it on your cable outlet, or if you have the physical DirecTV satellite. That's pretty much it. Because if you're going the streaming route like I'm doing as of right now until all that changes, you have to deal with the shows that are aired in New York, that are aired Eastern Standard Time, or Eastern Daylight Savings Time, or whatever you want to, however you want to look at it, basically, Eastern Time, you know. So again, if you're planning on, oh, I'm going to see The Mask, you know, as I'm getting ready for work, or I'm getting ready to go to classes and all that, you know, but you're thinking you're going to get The Mask on, you know, DirecTV streaming or Friendly TV streaming or Philo streaming, you know, forget it. Instead, you'll be getting Underdog. You want The Mask? Not a problem. You know, not a problem. You'll get The Mask, but you would have to tune in at 2:30 in the morning, you know, your time to get The Mask, because that's when it'd be showing up, you know, through Friendly TV, Philo, and DirecTV streaming. But again, outside of those outlets, if you have the over-the-air choice, if you have it as part of your cable package, or you have it, you know, if you have the physical dish itself for DirecTV, then that's the only way you're going to see MeTV Toons on a local basis. So yeah, that's pretty much the scenario right there. Yes, DirecTV is a big get for them, but again, it's basically very similar, if not the same, as to what's going on with cable, over-the-air, and streaming. Cable, over-the-air, you're good to go locally, but if not, if you don't have it local, if you don't have it, I should say, in that capacity just yet, then essentially what you're going to be dealing with is the streaming option, and that means you have to watch the shows that come on at the time they come on in New York, if you know what I mean, if that made any sense. But with that said, as I mentioned, they did bring out the streaming schedule, not streaming schedule, but they did bring out the fall schedule for 2025. And yeah, they did a lot of changes throughout, you know, throughout the first year and a half. There was a lot of changes, some shows taken off, some new shows added, some blocks reduced and all that. So yeah, they've had some changes. Like I said, some shows taken off, some cartoon animation blocks cut in half, if you will, and basically some new shows added. And the same goes here with the fall schedule. And this schedule goes into effect, if I can read this correctly, it goes into effect on September 15th. It does go into effect on September 15th, and this is the schedule. This is the schedule. Monday through Friday, basically kicking off your day, Monday through Friday at 5 a.m. Eastern and Pacific time, but 5 a.m. Eastern, kicking off your day. That would be, if you're, again, watching streaming-wise, that'll be 2 a.m. on the West Coast. But 5 a.m. Eastern time, you'll be kicking off the day with Captain Planet and the Planeteers. That hasn't changed. Police Academy, the animated series, will follow. That hasn't changed. The Real Ghostbusters will follow after that. So at 5 o'clock, oh, not 5 o'clock. Let me correct myself. Rewind. It's 6 o'clock. 5 o'clock, we'll still have the marionette stuff. They have a block name for that, and I'll get into that in a second. What I meant to say is at 6 o'clock a.m., 6 o'clock a.m., excuse me, 6 o'clock a.m., Eastern time, which would be about, let's see, 3 a.m. Pacific, if you're watching through the streaming options, at 6 a.m. Eastern time, 3 a.m. Pacific, Pacific time, West Coast time, if you, like I said, if you're watching through the streaming options, and that would be 4 a.m. Mountain and 5 a.m. Central. Basically subtract an hour or so, a couple of hours off the 6 a.m. But at 6 a.m. to kick off the day, you will have Captain Planet and the Planeteers. At 6:30, you'll have Police Academy, the animated series. At 7 o'clock, the Real Ghostbusters will air. So that hour and a half doesn't change. But then here comes the new parts of the schedule. Following the Real Ghostbusters at 7:30 a.m., which Pacific time, if you want to watch it, 6:30 Central, 5:30 Mountain, 4:30 Pacific. If you want to watch it on Friendly TV or Philo or DirecTV streaming, on your streaming platform, if you will, you have to be up by 4:30 a.m. at 4:30 a.m. Pacific, streaming-wise, but 7:30 a.m. Basically locally, no matter where you're at, if you're doing over the air or if you have it part of your cable package or what have you, at 7:30 a.m. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's right, the original animated series will be debuting on September 15th at 7:30 a.m. in the morning, but it all depends on how you're watching it, because again, if you're watching it through streaming, then you have to subtract, an hour from that. So if you live in the Central Time Zone, it's on at 6:30. You live in the Mountain Time Zone, it's on at 5:30. If you live here on the West Coast, in Pacific Time Zone, it's on at 4:30. And if you live in Hawaii and Alaska, that's all depending. And now, if you live like in certain parts of Hawaii, you have to subtract an hour from 4:30. That would be 3:30. 2 hours from 4:30, that's 2:30. Alaska, Anchorage at least, is like 2:30. It would be 2:30 in the morning, if you will, streaming-wise, if you don't have an over-the-air or cable option or DirecTV physical disc option. So yeah, if you're doing the streaming route, depending on where you live, you got to really subtract a lot of hours from the 7:30 time slot, Eastern time, that TMNT, the original TMNT, will be coming on. And then following that at 8 o'clock will be Beetlejuice. So Beetlejuice gets moved up to 8 o'clock in the morning, Eastern time. Then that's followed by the Underdog Show at 8:30. Then you get an hour's worth at 9 to 10 of Bugs Bunny and Friends. Then from 10 to 11 you get Casper and Company. Then from let me see here. From 11 to 1 you get the House of Hanna-Barbera. From 1 to 2 you get Popeye and Pals. From 2 to 3 Woody Woodpecker, or the Woody Woodpecker Show. From 3 to 4 you get Super Friends. And then, if you can't catch TMNT in the morning, the one thing that MeTV TOONS does is they do repeat the episodes later on. I think that's what they do. So basically, if you can't catch it early in the morning, then you'll be able to catch it in the afternoon, because basically at 4 p.m. Eastern, which will be 1 p.m. Pacific, you will get Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So if you don't see it in the morning, if you don't catch it in the morning, you can catch it in the afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Sorry about that. There was a cat going across our fence. But anyway, like I said, if you don't catch it in the morning, like at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific, 3:30 Hawaiian, 2:30 Alaskan, so on and so forth. If you don't catch it like that, streaming-wise, then at 4 p.m. Eastern, which would be 1 p.m. Pacific here, streaming-wise, and then maybe about noon Hawaiian and 11 a.m. Alaskan, you can get another shot at watching the episode you missed. So you'll get a repeat of said episode at 4 p.m. Eastern. If you're watching at 4 p.m. Eastern Pacific, if you're watching locally, through the non-streaming methods. But if you're watching through streaming, like Friendly, Philo, and DirecTV, then it'll be 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. We'll put, so there you go. And then, like I said, subtract an hour or two if you live in Hawaii and Alaska. And then following TMNT at 4:30 will be Scooby-Doo. And then following Scooby-Doo in some new time slots will be the Jetsons at 5 o'clock, and 5:30 will be the Flintstones. At 6 o'clock you'll have the Yogi Bear Show. At 6:30 is the Huckleberry Hound Show. At 7 o'clock you'll have the Tom and Jerry Show. And then 8 to 10 you'll have Bugs Bunny and Friends. And then 10 to 11 you will have Cartoon All-Stars. And then 11 to midnight, you will have Tune In With Me. So you'll get an hour's block of Tune In With Me at 11 p.m. And then at midnight Eastern Time, and again, if you're watching through streaming, you'll catch this at 9 p.m. Pacific, as well as basically 8 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Pacific. Again, subtract 1 or 2 hours Hawaiian and Alaskan time. But at midnight Eastern Time, you will get another chance to watch TMNT. So yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles will kick off the new day literally at midnight with an episode. So if you're at home in the evening, you're eating dinner, or you just want to relax after dinner, tune into Friendly TV, tune into Philo, tune into DirecTV streaming if you don't have any other options. And at 9 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Hawaiian, 7 p.m. Alaskan, again, depending on what that is, 11 p.m. Central, and 10 p.m. Mountain, you can get another chance to watch TMNT, the original TMNT, at that time. And then following that, for an hour, you will get Speed Racer from 12:30 to 1:30. Then at 1:30, you'll get Marine Boy. Then for an hour, from 2 to 3, you will get Super Friends. Then at 3 o'clock, at 3 o'clock, you will get Silverhawks. At 3:30, Challenge of the GoBots. And then you'll get a new block. Basically, you'll get a new hour and a half block from 4 to 5:30. It will be new. It's called No Strings Attached. It's called No Strings Attached, a collection of Gary and Sylvia Anderson Super Marionette series. So basically all those series you've been seeing, like Thunderbirds, Supercar and all that, that's all going to be part of this hour and a half block. So that's pretty good that they gave it its own name. And then at 5:30 a.m. you will have The Mask. And again, if you're watching through streaming, and all that, you need to subtract several hours depending on where you live. So if you live in the Central Time Zone, subtract an hour. Mountain Time Zone, subtract 2. Basically, Pacific Time Zone, subtract 3. So in other words, let's say, again, you want to watch The Mask at 5:30, Eastern Time. Here on the West Coast, you'll get it at 2:30. If you want to watch it on the Mountain Time Zone, you'll get it at 3:30, and at 4:30 on the Central Time Zone. And then, like I said, Hawaiian time and Alaskan time, you're looking at something like, let's say, 1:30 and maybe 11:30, depending on the time zone that your state recognizes, or the region of your state recognizes. So yeah, that's basically the Monday through Friday schedule. And then Saturday, pretty much everything stays the same. A few changes, but not much. Basically, starting off the day on Saturday at 6 a.m. is Alf the Animated Series. At 6:30 is Alf Tales. Then at 7 to 8 is an hour's worth of Yogi Bear. Then from 8 to 9 is an hour's worth of Captain Planet. 9 to 10 is an hour's worth of Hysteria. And then from 10 to 11 is Scooby-Doo. Then at 11 o'clock is Josie and the Pussycats. Then 11:30 is Top Cat. At noon is Underdog. At 12:30 is Johnny Quest. At 1, basically 1 to 2, or basically it's going to be 1 to 3, so you're going to get 2 hours worth. You get 2 hours worth of the Super Friends, 1 to 3. Then from 3 to 4 you get Speed Racer. Then from 4 to 5 you get Tom and Jerry Show. Then from 5 to 6 the Woody Woodpecker Show. And then at 6 you get Yogi Bear. At 6:30 you get Huckleberry Hound. At 7 you get the Jetsons. At 7:30 you get the Flintstones. And then from 8 to 10 you'll get Bugs Bunny and Friends. 10 to 11 Cartoon All-Stars. And then to basically follow that is another new edition. It's another new edition and everything. You will get Star Trek the Animated Series. That's right, the original Filmation series based on the original 60s show. You will get Star Trek the Animated Series at 11 p.m. And again, subtract several hours depending on where you live if you're watching via streaming. Because if you're not watching via streaming, you're good locally. But yeah, 11 p.m. you will have Star Trek the Animated Series. That's followed by Duck Dodgers at 11:30. Then you have Two Stupid Dogs and Secret Squirrel at midnight. That's followed by Steven Spielberg Presents Freakazoid at 12:30. Then at 1 you have The Mask. At 1:30 you have Police Academy. The Real Ghostbusters at 2. At 2:30 you have Silverhawks. At 3 you will have Pac-Man. At 3:30 you have Plastic Man. Then from 4 to 5 you have an hour of Challenge of the GoBots. Then at 5 o'clock, you have the Completely Misadventures of Ed Grimley. And then at 5:30, you have Mr. T. So that's the Saturday block. And again, if you're watching through streaming, subtract, if you don't live on the East Coast, subtract a couple of hours depending on your time zone. Subtract a couple of hours depending on your time zone. So in other words, if you want to watch Mr. T, yeah, Eastern time at 5:30, you're good to go. But if you're watching on streaming, you have to subtract several hours. Like here on the West Coast, we have to subtract 3. We get it at 2:30. Now, with that said, let's get on to Sunday. Sundays goes like this. At 6 to 7, an hour's worth, you'll get an hour's worth, I should say, from 6 to 7 of Inspector Gadget. From 7 to 8, you'll get an hour's worth of Baby Looney Tunes. From 8 to 9, you'll get an hour's worth of Asper and Company. From 9 to 10, you'll get the Tom and Jerry Show. From 10 to 11, 10 to 11, you'll get the Woody Woodpecker Show. Then, in a new time slot, because everybody was wondering, okay, what happened with Rocky and Bullwinkle? What's going to take its place? Well, this is a solution. At 11 to noon, from 11 to noon, you'll have Popeye and Friends. Then from noon to 1, Bugs Bunny and Friends. From 1 to 3, you'll have House of Hanna-Barbera. From 3 to 4, Scooby-Doo Sunday Specials. 4 to 5, Flintstones Family Sunday. At 5 o'clock, the Smurfs. At 5:30, Top Cat. At 6 o'clock, Magilla Gorilla. 6:30, Peteropotamus. 7, the Jetsons. 7:30, the Flintstones. Then from 8 to, I think, what is it? Let me make sure I read this right. From 8 to 11, you get 3 hours worth of Sunday night cartoon all-stars. Then from 11 to midnight, you'll get Wait Till Your Father Gets Home. Then you're going to get some classics here. At midnight, you'll get Where's Huddles. At 12:30, you'll get Lioness the Lionhearted. Then from 1 to 3, you'll get Totally Tuned In. Well, actually, from 1 to 3:30, you'll get Totally Tuned In because they added a half hour for it. And then after that, you get from 3:30 to 4:30, an hour's worth of the Wacky World. Or actually, you get an hour and a half's worth of the Wacky World of the Tex Avery's. That's going to be from 3:30 to 5. And then at 5, you get the Real Ghostbusters. And at 5:30 a.m., you get Beetlejuice. And that's the Sunday lineup. So there are significant changes schedule-wise, and some significant and interesting additions. TMNT we knew was coming. That's great to have them, even though you can watch them anywhere now, like Tubi and all that. But it's still good to see another outlet get them. But yeah, everything else is pretty much the same. Adding on Star Trek, the animated series, even though it's scheduled to be at 11 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday evening, I think it's great. Perfect time slot for it. And if you want to know the difference between it and the live action series, with the animated series, they can add in more additional crew members from an alien perspective. That's why you got that cat girl, that lioness girl, as part of the crew, basically as a main character. So yeah, that's kind of cool that they got that. And then to get the license to distribute, even though it's at midnight, and 12 midnight, basically in the midnight hour on Sunday going into Monday, to get Where's Huddles and Lioness the Lionhearted. That's pretty cool. Now, what's interesting though is how they're going to showcase those, because Lioness the Lionhearted, when it first came out long ago, it was basically a half-hour tool for advertising cereal. That's where the character Sugar Bear came from. So Lioness the Lionhearted being on here is going to be interesting to see. I'm sure they're going to edit out any of the cereal commercial advertisements and all that going forward. But yeah, This is actually a decent lineup to start out the fall season, or the fall season schedule for MeTV TOONS. Very interesting, and I think we're going to get more additions as time goes on. I know they're working on a lot more series they want to try to get the license for and everything, as well as they're working on trying to get more distribution in other cable outlets and over-the-air markets as well. Because I'm pretty sure some of the complaints they're getting, especially like here on the West Coast, is people not being able to watch certain shows due to the fact that when they air the shows on Friendly TV, Philo, and even DirecTV streaming, that instead of getting the shows that they would get locally, they're instead getting the shows Easternly. And that's kind of where MeTV TOONS does come in handy with their guide, because they do give you a couple of check boxes to check, to see where, how you can, to see where and how you can watch, certain programming. And when you click on, or when you check off, let's say, a streaming option, it tells you, yeah, you're going to get the Eastern stuff. So I'm sure this is why, in my opinion, the people at regular broadcasting are doing their best and doing their diligence to make sure a lot of this is kind of straightened out, and that more local, local outlets, cable and over the air, pretty much pick them up and bring them, on board. And maybe, hopefully, what they'll also do is they'll work it out to where maybe, Friendly TV, Philo, and DirecTV can kind of update themselves to give people the option to modify, when and where they watch certain things, from a time zone perspective. So like if you live in the Western time zone, you can get your Western programs and stuff like that. So yeah, hopefully, so maybe that's something that might be worked out as well, but we'll see. But anyway, though, guys, I just wanted to come on here and talk about this, show you, what the new lineup's going to look like. Let me know what your thoughts are overall. What are you looking forward to the most, and how do you watch it as well? And yeah, that's about it. So until next time, guys, comment down below, like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, share the video. Also, click on the links in the description to find my content elsewhere outside of YouTube, as well as click on the link at the bottom to find my Teespring store to get merchandise you can't get anywhere else. But guys, until next time, I will talk to y'all later. But give me your thoughts on the new fall schedule for MeTV TOONS. What are you looking forward to the most besides TMNT? How do you like the new schedule? What do you think of the new additions and rearranging of the time frames? Let me know. And until then, I am out.